What's considered the best in Genshin is ever evolving and ever changing. And with that in mind, we're going to be taking our characters that are available to us, seeing which ones are good now, and then seeing how they're going to rank both today as well as potentially in the future. Are they going to go up? Are they going to go down? Let's find out. Gamers, level up your game without breaking the bank. Dive into LOOTBAR's epic 6.1 recharge event, now live with a sleek new page. Grab the exclusive and limited 6,480 Genesis Crystals pack, gone in just 1 week with this discount. Plus, score big with our all-in-one and guaranteed bundles for unbeatable value. New to LOOTBAR, snag a 10% discount coupon on your first buy. Returning legends, enjoy that 5% plus an additional 3% off for a total of 8% savings. Valid for 1 week only. Just enter your UID and get it nearly instantly. Additionally, with the new 6.1 update, you can also top up on Chrono Nexus directly from LOOTBAR, the same trusted service as Genesis Crystals. Quick, secure, no hassle. While also saving up to 25% total when topping up at lootbar.gg. Join over 100,000 trusted users. Check out our glowing of trust pilot review. Other top creators like Jello Impact and Raiden Shotgun enjoy LOOTBAR and swear by it for its secure instant recharges. Head over to lootbar.gg with my own unique tag. Check it out in the description below and game on. Limited time and don't miss out. We got to start by explaining our tiers here first. The meta tier, constantly going to be used in top tier teams. So if you're like a meta slave, you want to know what the best of the best is. The characters that are going to be put here are the ones that you should probably be pulling on, saving your resources for, all of that good stuff. God tier here, you could call these ones OP if you so desire. They're not constantly used in meta tier teams, but they could be. You could maybe build a team around them. They have lots of play, and they'll probably be considerably buffed up within this last couple patches, especially with the Luna version changes. We have top tier, very strong, right? They might just be a little bit under the other two. Not that they're bad or anything, but you'll have a pretty easy time using them in a lot of content. Then we have a high tier, which is great, but not as flexible as the other tier is above it. So you may be able to do a lot of stuff with them, but they're definitely showing their wear, all right? Their wear and tear in the meta nowadays as a character. Then we have the low tier, viable tier. You could call them low tier, viable tier. We'll call them low tier, bottom tier, low tier. You can use these ones if you so desire. And I'm a big fan of a couple of characters I'll probably be putting in here, but you're probably a main if you like these characters. So if you're upset that these characters end up down here, I'm probably right there with you. And we have the joke tier, which is like they're not gonna save your account, they're not gonna save your progress. You need to save yourself maybe and think about not using these characters. So we're gonna be working our way up from 1.0 forwards here. So the first one here, we're gonna be putting Jean. Now Jean has gotten a lot of extra play, especially with the launch of Fontaine and Farina, where she can be a healer. That's an Anemo character where the Viridescent Venom set. She does have constellations where like you can get some extra attack speed and stuff like that, but those don't really matter. Her C4 is nice for Anemo teams, but a lot of the times with the new Nod Cry stuff, right? She's not being used in a lot of that stuff. I would put her in like, I don't really have a mid tier. I just have like a high tier, so we're gonna put her like right here in the high tier. This is pretty good. This is a good spot for her. You could maybe consider her in strong tier, but as she is an Anemo support, there's gonna be a lot of other characters who can kind of do what she does. Her main niche is being a healing 5-star that also is Anemo as well there. So moving up next, we have Mona. Mona, she got a little bit of a constellation change when we got Lunar Charge as an update. She's okay in a lot of things. I'm actually gonna put this in mid tier. There we go. She's fine, but there's a lot of characters that you are gonna be able to use that are Hydra as a support character. She used to see a lot of playing like freeze teams, so her debuff would stay on longer, but there's so many ways to increase damage percent bonuses done and apply Hydro efficiently that she's really just kind of down here right now in the mid tier, in my opinion. Now, Diluc did see a great resurgence with the plunge team that we talked about when good mommy Cloud Retainer came out here. So he's good. The problem with him though is that there are just a million Pyro DPS now, and he's a sizable option in that specific plunge team. But outside of that plunge team, he's pretty niche. I want to put him in high tier, but maybe I'll put him in mid tier. One of these two, it's fine. He's good. Inside of the plunge team, I'd probably put him like high tier. You can plunge with other people though. So outside of the plunge team, I'll probably just have to stick my boy Diluc down in the mid-tier section right here. Qiqi got some play when Dendro came out, but there's so many different Electro characters nowadays that I always get comments, can I use Qiqi here? And the answer is always like, you can, but should you? Right? You can, but should you? And so a lot of that is going to mean that, yeah, basic character coming right back into the mid tier, you're probably a main once again. First tier that's going to be crazy here is the Qiqi tier. One of the original cryo supports. 1.0 is not very fun for our Genshin characters. They're not going to save you, so you should probably save yourself and just not use Qiqi at all. She suffers from so many things. There's so many characters that are better in the cryo support category nowadays that I'm going to have to slot you right into the joke tier. That's just where you belong. Venti, the original Anemo support character. Yeah. If you compare him to someone like Gene at least has a niche, right? He's got some crowd control, which is hit or miss on how viable that is in certain pieces of content. Hoyo has lived to put in some characters and bosses and stuff that just he doesn't interact with ever since Inazuma, and they really haven't changed that so much. So he does group, but outside of just grouping and maybe giving some extra cooldown energy to your bursts and stuff, he doesn't really do a whole lot. And the constellations just can't save him. So I love Venti, but I'm going to have to put him down in mid-tier there as well. And then Qiqi is an interesting one. Suffers from a lot of the same things that Diluc does at Constellation 0. At Constellation 2, she does get that defense shred, which actually just makes her pretty viable as like a support option in the Mono Pyro or the Electro Pyro teams that are floating around that we can put together. So if you have that, you can think about her there. The other problem with Qiqi, though, is you need to be like a DDR master, right? To get her rotation done and play her most optimally and efficiently. And a lot of players don't like to do that. She is an old character in that regard. And she also like has weird things where you have to get her first constellation to unlock her ability to use her elemental skill 2 times. So without her C1 and C2, I'm going to put her down in mid. If she was C1, C2, you have her on your account. You can throw her up in high tier, but for right now, without the supportive aspects of her kit, she is, with all of the downsides, not quite joke tier, but she is definitely in the mid tier here as well. Now, we do have someone that is cool. You might think we've been putting him down here or here, but Tartaglia is actually someone who has stood, you know, a decent test of time as a Hydro support that does damage. He also does increase your normal attack talent level by 1, which some people find cool. But those taser teams that Child is in, where he's the main driver, they're still pretty good. They're still pretty decent, actually. And you can use him if you're a Child fan. Without constellations, a couple, you know, like C1 might help him out. But really, the gameplay style, the taser squad is still there. And it's pretty decent. It's not awful. Hydro's a good element. And there's not like a crazy amount of on-field Hydro drivers that want to take his place. You can use him for that reason. And I'm going to put him, you know, you can put him in mid, but I think I'll put him like towards, we'll try to keep him towards like the bottom tier. We're not really doing that in this tier list, but for Child, I think he's pretty strong right there with all of that Hydro application that he does. My man Zhongli, right? He used to be here, right? Meta, top tier. Very flexible character, big shield, just very relevant in any team you kind of put him in that you're not doing reactions in, or you just have an extra slot for survivability, resistance shred down to 20%. If you're putting him as your second Geo, you unlock the Geo resonance shred. But with all of the different things that have happened in Genshin with Geo Element and other characters coming out, the ability for us to resistance shred with a certain character we'll be talking about later, and all the other shielders that have come out as well, I'm going to put him in top tier still. Like, he's pretty strong. I like him quite a lot. But a lot of the times I find myself wanting to branch out and use other characters that aren't quite as boring. But I think he kind of deserves to be, you know, around right here. I actually lied to you guys. We're not doing this no one's bad tier. We'll do like low tier. We're going to put low tier right here. Low tier. And then I kind of noticed that these both say OP, so we're just going to delete this tier There we go. Meta tier, top tier, high tier, mid tier, low tier, joke tier. Thanks for sticking around. All right, moving on to the next one here. We're going to be putting him in high tier. I think that's where Zhongli goes. We're going to be moving on to my man, my boy, my C6 Albedo. Constantly used, and no, he's down in joke tier. I love Albedo to death, but they have not done anything for this man. His flower is abysmal to use. He doesn't really offer a whole ton in a lot of team compositions out there. Even if you're like mono Geo, he's even been entirely outclassed in a large way by a future off-field Geo character we're going to be talking about. So he's just a joke, man. I don't know what we're doing with this character. I don't know why we never decided to help him out in any way, shape, or form. Ganyu is the next one here, moving into some Liyue characters. Ganyu, even at Constellation 0, does have some nice play with her. She did get buffed up by some of the newer additions of cryo supports that have been released, since Fontaine and into Nod Cry as well. There's some very nice ways to buff her up, and you can even use her in like melt teams now. A lot of players like to do that. Freeze is kind of for a lot of playstyles out there. Freeze just doesn't really do enough damage with all the HP inflation that we have going on nowadays. But if you are a Ganyu fan, she is definitely, I would say, stronger than before. There are a couple of cryo DPS that I would want to use instead of Ganyu, but if you're a Ganyu fan, she's still great. Not as flexible in a lot of team situations because Freeze is basically just a dead strategy right now. So she used to be like top tier, meta tier in a lot of situations, but she's definitely fallen down. If you have a couple constellations, I think she just, stays in high tier, doesn't move her up at all. So we're just going to put her right there. Maybe I'm a little bit biased towards the GOAT, but I mean, she is a GOAT, right? The GOAT's got to stay in high tier. Now, my man Xiao, he did get a little bit of love with some of the changes. He's an Anemo character. We get access to other characters that can give some Anemo resistant shred. There's been some Anemo support 4-stars that have come out to help him out. So he has gotten better than before. He just likes to be a hyper carry, do damage guy. Anemo works in a lot of teams. You can base your team around him, have him be your driver, do some other things, have him, swirl for you if you so desire. On top of that, for some reactions and some weird teams. But mainly he's there for that plunge style. So he's gotten some additional support, and I think he's fine. He's fine, especially if you have some constellations for him that help him out, right? Add some extra cycling charges, add some extra benefits there. A lot of his later constellations just don't really do anything. But if you have the support for him, he will operate pretty well for you. And we're going to put him somewhere up into the high tier area. That's kind of where I decide that he's going to be spending his time here. Now we have Hu Tao. Hu Tao, we were talking about Pyro DPS before, right? Qiqi and Diluc and stuff. Hu Tao is someone who has gotten even better over time because of the additional support. She works, like we talked about with Diluc, with a plunge team, with a Cloud Retainer. We also have the ability to use someone like Sitlali with her. There's a lot of things that you can do with a Hu Tao team that just really make her shine. I'm not going to put her up in the meta tier because there are a couple other Pyro characters I would want to put maybe a little bit above her or about there. Honestly, I think if you have like C1, C2, and you have the support for her, you could probably consider her a meta tier option because of the ease of play with her and how much damage she does. I've been able to, just go into any recent Abyss floor for the most part. That doesn't penalize you, right? Someone who's immune to Pyro damage, and kind of AFK clear it with my old double Hydra Hu Tao team. So it's one of the two. It's either top tier, very strong, or meta tier. I don't want to put her in the same tier as some of the other characters just because I think they're in a vacuum stronger than her. So I'm gonna have to put her in top tier, which is fine. She's very strong, very OP, right? If I put her here, I'd be telling you to make sure you pick her up when she's rerun because you'll always use her, which isn't the case. So we're gonna have to keep her right down there in the top tier area. Now, Yulha, another character I have at Constellation 6, and just like one of my other Constellation 6 characters, has gotten absolutely no support from Hoyo at all. Physical character, the last time she got a supportive option was like Mika, which didn't really do anything. She goes right down into low tier. I almost want to put her in joke tier. I have a C6 one, and the ramp up and stuff is just kind of whatever. I want to kind of put her in a joke tier because that's what she feels like as a character with a lack of physical support in this game. You could put her in low, mid, low, joke. I don't know. I'm going to have to put her down in joke tier. But I know there are a couple people out there with big constellation ones that can use her. But even with like C6, she is right here in low at C6. So if we're not doing C6, we're doing C0. You're a joke. So we're going to have to do C0 Eula as just like joke tier, man. Bottom of the barrel. I am sad. Now, this one, Kazuha, has been a long standing staple of a universal support in Genshin Impact. Damage bonus, skill grouping, low cooldowns, damage himself. He's just a monster of a character. He is minimum top tier. You could put him in meta tier. The one thing that will delineate between which one of these two is correct are the two things that we are going to talk about right now. Lunar Charge, which is something going on with Nodcry right now, does not benefit from damage bonuses. They benefit from elemental mastery, meaning that if you're using a lunar anything team, and we're going to be seeing more of them in the future, you probably will not be using Kazuha, and you probably will be using Sucrose in that team instead. So that alone, because we're making a tier list video for this patch, and also you can watch it in future patches, we're going to bump him down from meta tier down into top tier. He is very strong, still very good, very OP, but I expect him to keep falling out of all of these Nodcry teams. So for that reason alone, I'm just going to have to shove this baby boy down in top tier. Very strong, very OP. You can pick him up if you want to, if you're using some of these older non-Nodcry teams. He's like the king of non-Nodcry Anemo supports. But he does get outclassed by a 4-star if we're doing Nodcry stuff. So we're going to have to put him right down in top tier. We also have a cryo support, or cryo DPS, excuse me, that we were talking about before. Where does this character go? Ayaka just has gotten as much support, if not more support, than Ganyu does. With our ability to get Constellation 1, Constellation 2, if you want to, you pick them up right now. It just makes her even better. It just makes her even better. We have the likes of Shenhe running around. We have the likes of a couple other future characters. I don't want to spoil the tier list of cryo supports, right? That have come out since Fontaine. And she's just crazy good. I think that she belongs right here next to Hu Tao. This used to be my go-to. One side Hu Tao, one side Ayaka. You can do that right now. And it will perform very well for you, even with like a free-to-play budget-friendly setup. So she's very strong. Yoimiya, we're talking about Pyro characters. Oh my goodness. She exists, but man, I've never heard out of anyone except someone who's a main using this character, which we have to move this to. We're professional here, don't worry about it. Who uses Yoimiya outside of Yoimiya mains? So Yoimiya, low tier, you're probably a main. That's where you go. Now, this character, Raiden Shogun, is someone who is near and dear to my heart. As a hyper carry Raiden enthusiast, right? She has kind of fallen down. It used to be like meta tier, you could beat anything with it. Her damage is not comparable to some of the new characters that have come out in Sumeru, right? Main DPS Sumeru characters, main DPS Nodcry characters, all this stuff. She just does not work there. Even if you have Constellation 2 with her, you can do it, but you're hitting for like 50, 60, 70 Ks a hit, and everyone else is just doing way more damage than that. And all these other new characters don't really necessarily benefit from Raiden's ability to sort of battery them that much. We're getting new characters that have like lower and lower costing elemental bursts, characters that don't necessarily care too much about their elemental bursts being used inside of a rotation. All right, looking at you, Nefer. Down here, Nefer, we're talking about Nefer there, thank you. No, we're not saying anything else there. But the one thing about her is that she still is pretty excellent in sort of any sort of Hyper Bloom team. So she works well in Hyper Bloom teams, and that is kind of where she's going to shine for the most part. And so if you have a Hyper Bloom Raiden, she goes right there. Outside of that, I would move her down lower and lower because she's just not as relevant outside of a Hyper Bloom sort of activator in an Elemental Mastery build. However, if you are using that one, she works very well there. So speaking of Hyper Bloom and Bloom, Kokomi. Kokomi is a character that started here, bottom of the barrel, when she was released. We had no use for supports. We had no Bloom. We had no Hyper Bloom. We had no Dendro, right? When she first came out. The most skipped character, I think, in Genshin Impact for a very long time. But now she has a lot of uses with all the new Nod Cry characters, a lot of the Sumer reactions, Dendro, and she's just a fantastic character. If you're looking for some sort of hydro applier that heals you for those teams, you can't really go wrong with putting her in the party for you. There's just too many things, Nilou teams, and just so many things. So we're gonna have to put her right up in top tier. She is OP, very strong. If those are some of the play styles that you're looking for, and you're looking for some sort of hydro applier that heals for these Bloom, Hyper Bloom, Lunar Bloom teams, or even like a Nilou team, she goes right there, and she is fantastic at her job. This one here, this is a character that you might not have. This is Aloy. And she goes in joke tier. We don't talk about her because we had a collaboration. I wish we would have had like a Monster Energy drink collaboration or something. Instead, we got Aloy, and she was forgotten. So we're going to put her right there. Now, Goro, you guys know I'm a Noel main. And so you might be like, oh, dude, he's a Geo lover. He's going to put him right up in here. Listen, if you've been into the Abyss anytime lately or any of these endgame things, there's too many bosses in this content that exists nowadays that just demands that you bring a couple of elements a lot of the times. Could you brute force it potentially on some of these bosses if you're like C6, R5, SIG weapon on every character in your mono Geo squad? Potentially, but even then there's bosses that we've just had. Like you need to do certain elemental reactions to even be able to damage the boss or break their shield or do some sort of main mechanic where you literally can't even use mono Geo against it. And his whole shtick is I'm a mono Geo guy. So if you have like constellations for him and you want to have fun with him, for sure. But honestly, outside of that, and because it's just really a Geo problem and not an Arataki Ito problem, we're gonna have to put Ito, my man, like right down here. I'm gonna count him low tier. If this is C0 Ito and you're using your C0 Ito, you're probably a main. And so you fit right there, my friend. Speaking of cryo characters and cryo supports, Shenhe is here. Shenhe is fantastic. Shenhe loves being paired with cryo characters. Shenhe is great. That being said, there are a ton of other cryo characters that I feel like might just be a little bit better than her. I'm not gonna put her here. We're not re-rolling for Shenhe. We're not pulling on Shenhe reruns. She is not OP or very strong in most teams, so she doesn't fit there. And because she's kind of a character that is usable in some niche specific teams, cryo focused, we're going to have to put her in high tier, which is great. It's a great tier still. This is a good tier to be in, but she's not flexible. So we're going to have to put her right there in the high tier category. Someone that I am going to glaze up a little bit that I do love using is Yae Miko. Now, Yae Miko, being an elemental mastery scaler that's Electro right now, is actually kind of living her best life as a sub DPS. I don't think she's going to be meta tier. I do think she is very strong right now in a lot of ways and a lot of situations out there. I think she is quite good. You can set her, you can forget her. I do think a lot of the times there's some other teams that she's not a part of that might be rated better than her. But if we're talking about what her role is, where you can put her in, are those teams strong? I think I would either put her right here. I think she's better than these other characters right now, potentially. So I'm going to put her up in the top tier. Off-field DPS support skills with elemental mastery, which helps her if she does eventually get involved in some lunar reactions, helps scale those damages for her as well. So she's looking like she is potentially now very good and very strong and will stay there potentially just because she likes having some elemental mastery in her build, which helps her out with the lunar reaction content. Ayato, dude. All right. Well, Ayato, dude, there's so many different ways and things you can do with Ayato. It really comes down to how much do you like this guy, and I think honestly he kind of fits. He fits at C0 like right around here. Like you can use him. He's cool. He applies hydro. A lot of the times though, unless you're doing like I'm a main Ayato tier, right, where you want him to be your hyper carry of some sort or your main hydro applier. If I was to compare him in a role for these teams that he wants to be in, hydro application, usually in a Dendro team, right? There's some hyper bloom elements in there. You're trying to fit a bunch of stuff into that team. And if Ayato is your hydro character, you need to be putting, someone else in your team that can heal. If you're using him as a ton of hydro application, you don't need to use someone like Xingqiu, right? And if you're using him as a hydro applier, you need to fit some other characters in your party that can help facilitate what you're doing. So a lot of the time it becomes, should you use Ayato as a driver or should you use Kokomi, right? And if I was to compare them, I don't think they're too far away tier wise. I think he's fine, but I don't think he's like high. I think he's like right around this area. I think he's like high-ish, mid-tier. I'm not going to put him with these characters down here. This mid-tier right there, Ayato, high tier. I think he's great, but he's not super flexible. There's a lot of questions you need to ask yourself. Like if you're using him, well, you need to like have like a Dendro character that is a healer. So you're kind of locking yourself into Byasu, and then you want to use Llama and then Nefer, and then you're just like, what are we doing here? So he's going to stay right there. I didn't think I'd talk about him that long. Now, Yelan, we did talk about the interesting thing of like, man, damage percent bonus is kind of falling off as an Anemo character. Swirl's kind of like whatever. Grouping's fine sometimes. And Kazuha has kind of fallen down a little bit, and we ended up putting him here. What do I feel about Yelan? Now, Yelan is very similar in that regard. She does help you move around a little bit. She does do a pretty significant amount of damage of herself, just like a sub DPS would. But a lot of her potential comes from her large damage percent bonuses from Depth Clarion Dice. And a lot of that is not going to work well with Nodcry characters, meaning that I don't think she will constantly be used in top teams for forever. We just got into Nodcry, and there's going to be many more characters coming out that I don't know if she's going to work with, just because Lunar Charge as a mechanic is something we're going to be seeing a lot more of. So I'm going to have to shove her right down here, even though she is one of my favorite characters. And you can kind of see, look at Hu Tao, Yelan. Oh, wow, this looks like the original Hu Tao team right there. Isn't that crazy? One of them anyway. And they're all in the same tier. Very strong, very OP. But I'm not going to tell anyone they're constantly used in top teams, and you should probably like roll for them when they come out. That's not happening quite yet. Then we have Tighnari. He's cool. He's fine. I really don't like the guy that much. You can make him work in like mid-tier-ish, right? But Dendro is a very powerful element. There's a lot of great 4-star Dendros. There's a lot of great 5-star Dendros. A lot of the times, one of the most commonly asked questions, if you go look up a guide or a video or something about a Hyper Bloom team or a Bloom team, or someone using Xingqiu Tighnari, they want to use Xingqiu Tighnari. You really can't. He is counter synergistic with some of the best Hyper Bloom teams that a lot of new players want to put together. They get him, and he just is kind of whatever there. He doesn't really work too well in those archetypes. He's more of a quick and bloom guy, and right now those aren't all that great. I'll probably have to put him in low tier, and if you want to complain about it, all I gotta say is, what are you gonna do? You gonna lock me up? You gonna lock me up like Tighnari did? You gonna lock me up? Obviously not. Sino, just kind of your basic run-of-the-mill like cool guy, just does damage. He's fine, but if you compare him to like Nodcry characters, compare him to like Fontaine characters even, right? A lot of the Sumeru stuff, he's just like, hey, I want to be the Electro version of Tighnari, right? I want to work in Aggravate, and I want to work in Quicken teams. And right now, it's just not the greatest thing. It really isn't the greatest place to be for this guy. And so at the time of this recording, I am going to have to put this man like in low tier. You're probably a main, but I don't want to put him lower than mid tier. So we're going to have to put him up in the mids. We'll put him right there. I think he's better than these other characters down here for sure. So we'll put him right in the mid tier there for you. And then we have a big one. Now, this character just got big, boosted up, better than ever before. It's phenomenal. Nilou is a character that a lot of people, when she came out, they were like, dude, I need to make this crazy Bloom team. It's so cool. And Nilou does do a lot of work now, especially if you've got a constellation or two for free, potentially. I'm not going to put her in meta tier. You shouldn't be re-rolling for Nilou. Well, actually, it depends, because like the Nilou Bloom team right now has some of the highest AoE damage, I think, in the game, the Llama Nilou nonsensical stuff, and might actually work really well with Nefer too. I'm not 100% sure. You might want to think about her if you want some AoE damages. This one, but she's too niche for me to say that you should roll for her, though, because she's only good in Bloom. So I'll have to put her at the very tippy top of top tier. I think she's very strong in her niche. She's too strong to get put down in high tier because she's not flexible, but she's stronger than that. She's stronger than these characters by a mile. So she belongs up here with these ones, even though she only works in Bloom. Nahida is, at the end of the day, just an amazing character. She does get outclassed a lot by Llama in so many ways, but you would think that would mean I'm going to put her right here. Here's the thing. For right now, because of the way her kit works, and she gives bonus elemental mastery, which helps you gear up for these lunar Bloom teams, lunar anything teams with a Dendro character in there, a lot of the times you're going to put her in those teams with Llama. So if you don't have Llama, you're going to use Nahida. And if you have Llama, you're probably still going to use Nahida. So if you want to go super meta right now, she's very strong for that. She also has a lot of other teams she can go in. So she's a Llama replacement, and Llama is better than her in a lot of ways and will continue to scale better into the meta teams than Nahida will. But for right now, I'm going to have to put her right up in the meta squad right there, which also goes into Wanderer, who is someone who is just like a generic DPS guy, who's like a fine option, right? It's like a Constellation 0 tier list. And if you notice mid-tier here, it's just like fine people. It's just okay. Actually, this is fine. Just like fine-ish people. You can do good stuff with them. They're not like insane. They're not unusable. They just kind of go right there, and that's where he is going to end up. Very similar with Al Hytham, right? Just does cool guy stuff. It's a cool guy. He's pretty powerful, potentially. He does have a niche where he is one of the few on-field Dendro DPS drivers. That's a 5-star, right? So if you compare him to like Baisu, Nahida, Llama, he is pretty good there. However, we did just get Nefer. So I was going to put him like high tier. He's good, but compared to her, who he's got to go down at least 1. I think he's better than Tignari, and I don't think he's good enough to show up in the high tier. Great, but not as flexible. Being a Dendro character, there's just so many good ones that unless you specifically want an on-field Dendro player that does damage and is built for damage, you're probably going to use one of the other ones. So mid-tier is where he resides. Dea we used to have Dea tier, right, which was down here. She does have some applications in some of the mono pyro, right, some of the Electro pyro teams. She's fine in those teams. You're probably a main if you're using her, right? If you think about how much you want to use Dea over a lot of these other characters who are already on the tier list, you're not going to put her anywhere near any of these ones. So you're going to have to put her down here in the low tier. You're probably a main. All right, moving on. We have Baisu, who is fairly unique as a 5-star here. There are so many good 5-stars, and a lot of the reasons why we touched on bumping some of the other Dendro characters down and away is that he does fulfill that niche of Dendro healer. He doesn't apply Dendro nearly as much, especially if you don't have Constellation 0, Constellation 0, Constellation 1, Constellation 2 in those teams, but he does perform very well there. He's not meta. You shouldn't be re-rolling for him in the meta tier or making sure you pick them up if you're a meta slave. But he is very good, right? He is very strong, and he deserves that spot right there. Liney, listen, he is a little bit above some of these Pyro DPS right here. So high tier is where he goes. I don't like him nearly as much as Hu Tao does. Does he go? Is he on par with a Hu Tao? Yeah, no, he's on par with this. He goes up in the top tier. If you like that play style, I'm trying to fight my biases because I don't like the crazy charge attack only Liney play style. I have a C6 Ganyu and I'm fighting the bias there as well. I'm gonna fight my biases again and put him up here. Yeah, very strong. Yeah, no, he's good. He still does good numbers. You could maybe move him down. Maybe we'll go. No, he's good. He's right. I'm having some conflicting issues here, ladies and gentlemen. It's okay though. Nivelette. As of the moment of this recording, he might get thrown out at some point. But if you're looking for the guy, the I do damage Hydro character, he's very strong. Hydro is one of the best elements in the game. We're also seeing that right now. I don't know why Nodcry so far has decided to put in two characters that work well with Hydro characters in a lot of ways, shape, and form. So you can put him right there. He's very good in Hyper Bloom. He's very good in Bloom. Freeze if you want to. Give him some survivability. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this guy, and he is continuing to be one of the best DPS characters in the game. So that is where he goes, uncontested. That man is just, he is just too strong. Another one here recently, right? He's just a newer, he's just a little bit better. He is just like a generic DPS guy, right? Like these ones, others in mid tier, but he just performs better, right? I think he's just a strong guy. I think he's not extremely popular, but I think he is still very good. So I'm gonna have to put him up here. I put him in this tier every single day of the week. If you're a fan of him, great. If you're not a fan of him, he's still strong. I don't care. He goes right there. Now, Furina, very similar to what we talked about when we were talking about the likes of like Kazuha and who else was in here that did? Oh, Yelan, right? Damage percent bonuses, right? You need to have someone that heals your party, but fanfare stacks and off-field damage, very similar to someone like Yelan. The difference between like Yelan and Furina is that Yelan buffs the active slot, right? Furina buffs everybody, which is just nice. And she can also heal, and she can grow stronger with constellations. So while like the likes of Kazuha and Yelan have fallen down a tier still, I still think that Furina is well worth picking up here in 2025 because you are going to be able to make another extremely solid team around her, even if you don't have some of these other ones that have been moved down into the top tier. You'll be able to figure something out with her, even if it's just like some weirdo team. She works in a lot of things out there, and she's still definitely worth a pity if you want to. She's great. She might fall off a little bit more as Nodcry stuff comes out, or she could just stay the test of time and stay there. So we're gonna have to put her in meta tier. For right now, there's still a couple of characters that will belong up in the meta tier area, like Nivelette, who work really well with her. As you can see, we're kind of piecing one of the original Nivelette squads together, right? All right, Navia. She's fine. If you compare her to some of the other characters, right? She's not as flexible, or she's not as unflexible or as narrow as Arataki Ito is. You don't need to run her in a mono Geo team, which means that if you're coming into content that really punishes the fact that Geo can't interact with elements very well, you have an out for that. You have like one or two other party member slots at the minimum that you can use with her. So I think she's still a great character, and I'm going to put her up in the top tier up here. She just does work very well. She's got a very solid core team that's pretty easy to put together on top of that. And she's got some two flexible slots, which is something that's very unique for a Geo DPS. So top tier, very strong, much wow. We love it. We love that a lot. We need to talk about Cloud Retainer, Jinyun. I can never remember how to pronounce her name. Cloud Retainer is an interesting one because Cloud Retainer works very well and unlocks like the hidden potential of some of the other characters that we talked about, right? Like Plunge Diluc is right here. If we said he'd move up a whole tier if you could have her. So the thing with her is if you're into the plunging playstyle, she's going to be very strong. So we're going to leave her right here because she enables so much stuff. One of them being right here in the team, right? Hu Tao, Plunge Hu Tao is very popular, very good. And I think she just is worth it. If you have her on your account, you can probably build something pretty cool with her and do that play style right there. I don't think she's strong enough that you need to go reroll for her. But if she's there, you're going to have a good time with her. We also have the one who superseded the throne of Albedo with this Chiori. Kind of flexible, just kind of fits in anywhere. You pair her up very well with another character that we'll talk about later for 2x Geo. And she is just a good character. You just kind of set it, you just kind of forget it. She's not OP, she's a little bit better than these ones down here. And Chiori takes that slot. It's not hard to understand why. She's just a cool girl. Cappuccino is here. The Cappuccino is here. I think she is meta tier still. I think she goes into different teams potentially than someone else who's going to come up in this area. But I think that for the amount of effort you need to put into her build, which is very minimum, you get a lot of power for free. So if her just kind of like play style of do damage, mono pyro if you want to, or electro pyro, or you can even have her in a melt team, or you can have her in a vaporize team. You can do a lot of cool stuff with her. So she's definitely up in here, and she is used pretty consistently in a lot of top teams. More so often than like maybe a free-to-play team. But just because she's so easy to build, even with something like Gladiator set, you can throw her up in there. I think she's just that good still a lot of days. You might argue with me that she belongs here, but I'm gonna put her up here. If someone said they wanted to roll for her on her banner and asked me like, is it worth it, or should I not, should I avoid it, I wouldn't tell them not to. So that's where she's gonna go. I think that's pretty much a solid option there. We have Chlorinide right here. She is just an overall kind of strong character. A lot of people kind of slept on her and they think that she was bad or mid or terrible. She's definitely better than these characters here, and she just kind of fits into this general list of like good characters. Like, is she a lot worse than these ones here? Depending on the team you put her in, sure, but she has her own niche inside of these teams, which was unlocked around her release date, which is like the Electro Pyro teams and stuff like that. So she's also got some taser stuff you can do with her. She's just strong. She's just a strong character still to this date. Sijuin, if you compare her to some of the other options that are Hydro characters, even like 4-stars ones that we're not really comparing here, I just don't really see a use for this character a lot of the time. Like, she's not bad, right? But I'll definitely put her below all the other Hydro options that are here. If there's another Hydro option that I think makes her even worse, we'll move her down here. But I think for right now, she's just kind of mid. She's just kind of hanging out. She's just kind of doing whatever. She's just kind of fine. Amelia, this character here is niche, high, great, but not as flexible. The thing is, though, I don't feel like it's fair to judge a character who says, hey, my entire kit's around burning, and then be like, well, they're not flexible, right? Like Nilou. But if they're good in their very narrow party, which their entire kit is revolving around, if they're like insane in there, then fine, right? Then fine. So we're gonna put her up in the top tier. She's strong. Emil still does a lot of great things. We're gonna put her right there. That's kind of where she belongs. And Mulanni, yeah. So we're moving into the characters that are just like, hey, I do big giga damage, very easy. I'm higher than all these other characters. We'll put her right there. Very strong, much wow. Very similar to that. We have another DPS character from the same region, Natlan. Oh my goodness. Crazy that the Natlan characters are just in the very strong OP tier. Kinich, my man, hanging out, having fun, doing work. Much love. Big success. All right, you guys saw it coming. Xiaolonin. Now, Xiaolonin and Kazuha, a lot of comparisons were made between the two of them. Kazuha has grouping and resistant shred and damage bonus. We have healing, resistant shred, and damage bonus for 2 elements. at least, which is nice. Kazuha has to swirl something and do it, which you can do with the VV set. Zilonin has the ability to do 2. Kazuha can do 2 or more, depending on what you're doing with them. The thing is, because she works so well with someone like Faruna, she can fill in that I can heal a little bit gap. I can move around the battlefield. I can save you time in the abyss a little bit. I can shred. I can do all this other stuff. And she's very good at battering too. Even though damage percent bonus doesn't work with Natlan stuff. That's not an intrinsic part of her kit. That's just her wearing the Cinder City set. So if we move into like Lunar Crystallize in the future, and it isn't interactable with damage percent bonus, but the rest of her base kit is good, she will still be good there, and you might be able to just put a different set on her. So her base kit stays the same. The fact that damage percent bonuses don't work with Lunar Charge reactions isn't a downside in her kit. That's just an artifact set. So I'm not going to punish her for that. And so she still stays in the meta tier. Amazing. This character, Chaska flies around, shoots bullets, is good. Anemo character, right? She's just going to be a better Anemo character, DPS, than Xiao, right? All these other Anemo DPSs, she is just a step above them. Power creep, call it what you want. She's there, she's strong. You can't really complain too much about that. Then we have Mavuika, which is where we talk about this. A lot of people are going to complain that these two are in the same tier. Honestly, is she a better character in a lot of situations? Just set it, forget it, ride the motorcycle, spin to win over, Cappuccino? Sure. Does that make her move down an entire tier? Possibly. But what I'll say here is that pick one, right? If you're saying, oh, which one should I pick? This is the constantly used in some top teams. Which one should I get? Well, here's a Hydro DPS, here's a Dendro support, here's a Hydro support, here's a Geo support. There's 2 Pyro characters here, and they're both good. One's better than the other in some teams. One has some teams that one might not be, better in. But this one right here, just because she's so easy to build, I'll keep him in the same one. I think that's definitely a fair thing to do. A fair thing to do. This character, all right, I'm not going to give too much time on this character. Listen, low tier. Listen, just stay right there. Just stay. You don't even get a name. You don't even get mentioned here, my friend. Now, sit lolly. Want to talk about some creep? We were talking about cryo characters, cryo supports that push the likes of Shenhe and all these other ones down. It's sit lolly. Barriers, res shield for Pyro as well as cryo, which is kind of crazy. Like, if you compare her to the likes of the universal love of Zhongli, Zhongli would randomly and periodically show up, right, in Pyro reaction teams or Hydro reaction teams. Nothing to do with Geo. They just wanted them for the 20% shred plus the barrier. Well, guess what? We got some shred plus a barrier plus some application plus some other stuff all in the same character and more, and actually applies the element for you to do those reactions. So this is why Zhongli is down here. He's still strong, he's still good, but this character is just Zhongli 2.0 in a lot of situations and a lot of these cryo and pyro teams. And her barrier is not nearly as big, but it's still usable. You still have the dash button, and then you can still take a couple hits with it and protect yourself from getting knocked around. So yeah, she just goes right there. She's too strong. Verisa, I mean, do you put her in the meta tier? She is one of the highest damaging characters from the region, right? Do you put her up here or do you put her here? I think you just have to. If someone was to say, I'm a little biased, if someone was to say, hey, should I pull her? Is she strong? I would say yes, and she doesn't take that much investment with supports or anything to make her crazy, and she's got a lot of ways to bump her up into some awesome teams. How she's going to scale into the Natlan region, into the new region, I'm not entirely sold on. But as of right now, I think she just does so much damage that you at least put her in very top tier. I don't know if I would be like, yeah, I can definitely tell you that she will scale because of her element. It's different than Mavuika, different than Arlecchino, Cappuccino, who are Pyro, who can just randomly get a support that buffs Pyro with reaction damage or something like that, right? So I'm gonna have to put her maybe right here, although she does have the potential to grow if we get something like Lunar Superconduct or something, potentially. She could get even better. She just does a lot of damage, man. Yeah, don't fight it. Just put her up here in the meta tier. She just does one little bounce. Oh, I'm not. Yeah, actually, I have to move her up. Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll put her here because Raiden Shogun. This is the Elemental Mastery Raiden Shogun build. If you compare like a full DPS Hyper Raiden carry to this character right here, you're going to wonder why they're in the same tier. So we're going to put her in the meta tier. That's honestly, I do believe, where she belongs. Escoffier. Huh, I wonder where she goes. Yeah, one of the other cryo characters, cryo supports, that just does crazy things. If you are a fan of her kit, you want some cryo action, you want some cryo-based stuff in your party, has the potential to grow if we do some more cryo-based lunar stuff in the future. On top of that, yeah, we're just gonna have to put her in meta tier, constantly used in top teams, because that's the god honest truth. That is just the truth there. All right. We love it. We absolutely do. Then that leaves us moving into Skirk. Hey, look at that. This guy here, Skirk, Sitlali. Whoa. Yeah, Skirk's just kind of insane. She does like a good giga damage up to the likes of like these characters here. We're going to leave her with the crowd characters. She's just strong. There's nothing else to say. If you like Skirk, you want a crowd DPS character, we have to put her above the other options. I'm not putting Skirk and Ayaka in the same tier. Ayaka's insanely strong, but come on. Let's be reasonable. Let's be rational with this, okay? Let's be reasonable and rational, all right? That's where that's going there. Inefa. I love Inefa. Inefa's a crazy good support. She is part of the new region, and I think she's got a lot of room to grow. Right now, there's not like a ton of teams that like definitely need her, but she's probably going to scale very well with the rest of the region. So you either put her in top tier very strong, or you pair her up in the meta tier. The only thing that I could see keeping myself from putting her in meta is that it's constantly used in top teams, which means that like there's not a replacement for it. In a lot of situations, right? If you want like an Electro DPS, this is probably your top option. Cryo characters, probably your top option, right? Your best option. The option of replacing a Nefa in your party, you can probably get something that has a similar clear time, even if it doesn't involve her. Unless you're using a couple specific characters that really needed her. So what we're going to do is we're going to move her right down there. She was a lot better when she was one of the only characters that was out with the nod cry mechanic. But now we're getting more of them. And so the one use where like it felt like she was forced to be in your party has decreased a little bit. But I still think she's very strong and is a top tier candidate. Definitely. And the reason why we're moving her down is because a lot of what's going on right now involves this character, which is Lalma. And we talked about it before. Lalma and Nahida, right? Lalma is just a better version of Nahida, but the only reason Nahida is still in this tier is that a lot of the top Lalma teams will also have Nahida in them a fair amount of the time. And if you don't have access to Lalma, Nahida is still in an insane amount of top teams too. So they both go together. Yes, she's a lot better than Nahida in my opinion, which normally under normal circumstances would move Nahida down a tier. But because what they do is just so strong and so irreplaceable, they can actually share the same tier. Very similar to like why these two are both in the same tier, which I hope that makes sense to you. Moving down to some of the final ones, we have... that's a 4-star. That's I know. We have Flynn's, who is just like a good guy. Flynn's is just strong. I don't think you need to roll for him specifically. He's a DPS. He's cool. He does a lot of stuff. He's a good character. But if you were to be like, okay, well, do I need to roll for the new Nodcry DPS that needs some of these other Nodcry characters right now? A lot of them are 5 stars. He doesn't have a lot of flexible options, right? You don't have a Nepha, you don't have Llama, you know, you're forced into using like Ino, which is fine. He's just good. He's got high multipliers and he does really good stuff. So he's one of the top DPS characters, but he's a little bit more restrictive when putting a team together right now, because there's not, you know, an overwhelming amount of Nodcry options quite yet that has been released. So we're gonna, you know, put him back. He's got a lot of potential to grow, and I probably assume he will eventually be up there. One thing I don't know about is having these two separate, having her actually higher than him is a little weird. But if you take into account like the flexibility of what supports can boost her damage versus the supports that boost his damage in a lot of ways, I think it's too easy to make her do way too much damage right now with the state of the game. I think these two will swap eventually though, but we're gonna leave that for now. Oh, we can't do these two characters because they're not out. And then Nefer, as far as I can tell, like I said when we were talking about the likes of on-field Dendro characters, right? We have this one here and Nefer. Should they be on the same tier? A lot of the times Dendro doesn't necessarily need an on-field driver. We've seen this time and time again, where the on-field drivers for Dendro teams, on-field DPS drivers, mind you, characters like Kinich, even though he's strong, characters like Alhaitham came out, he was still strong. Tignari even got some play when he came out, but they just weren't that popular in comparison to some of the other meta options in the Dendro slot. A lot of the times when teams are put together, you're using the party slot on like Dendro supports like Nihida or Lalma or Baizu or Emil, right? You're not really focusing on, outside of something like a Nilou team, someone who's going to be in the active slot and using them as a Dendro DPS character. Like one of the few times you'd see like Alhaitham floating around is because you are limited by the party comp design inside of a Nilou team that can only have Hydro and Dendro characters. And that's where those characters kind of shine, are in these teams where it's like, I'm kind of forced to pick a Dendro DPS on-field driver. I think she's strong. I think she's good. I think she's pretty easy to build. I think she scales very well with Nodcry. I'm just not particularly sold on her being better than other on-field DPS options right now. And just like with Flynn's, I think she has the potential to become better with more flexibility given to her. If we get some more characters that come out that work well with her kit, that aren't the Dendro element, that want her on the field as a Dendro driver, where her niche becomes even stronger, right? Then we'll be seeing her move up a little bit. But for the likes of it right now, you want your Dendros off field most of the time, and you don't really want them on field for a lot of these team compositions, in my opinion anyway. They can work and they are strong, but I don't think they're in the Giga meta team. I could be wrong. You could put her up here because she's just solidly the best on-field Dendro driver. But from a team composition standpoint and flexibility and what you guys might have out there, I'm going to have to put her down in the top tier. Put her down in the top tier. I don't think we missed anybody here. Doesn't look like it. I don't think we did. I think we got them all. I don't have them memorized off the top of my head. Yeah, no. Damn. So this is going to be the list right here. I think this is pretty good. I think this is pretty up to date, and it includes our girl. And let me know what you think about it down below. This has been a pretty long video. Thank you for staying in a whole hour on my Genshin TED Talk, and I'll catch you guys, much love, in the next one. Take care, guys.